It was a FIFA World Cup final dripping with storylines. Lionel Messi took his place alongside Diego Maradona in the hearts of Argentines and wrote himself into his country's folklore, helping to deliver the country's first FIFA World Cup title in 36 years, their third overall. The 35-year-old was central to an outstanding performance by Argentina on Sunday in a game rated by many as the best final in the 22 editions of the FIFA World Cup. On the other side was Kylian Mbappe, the 23-year-old phenom, hoping to lead his country to a second consecutive world title. It was a clash of international footballing royalty, led by two of the game's most imposing players at opposite stages of their career. And unlike the usual cagey, one-sided or drab fare so often served up in the final of a major tournament, especially the World Cup, Sunday's game was certainly no anticlimax. The French had sleepwalked their way through the first 40 minutes as Argentina threatened to run riot with Angel Di Maria in inspired form for the Argentines. Messi's penalty and Di Maria's counter-attacking strike forced French coach Didier Deschamps to make the two first-half substitutions that breathed life into his team and made the game into a proper contest. Messi's double looked to have cancelled out the effect of Mbappe's own double strike before the French tyro struck his hat-trick goal to take the match to penalties. And in the shootout, Messi and Mbappe again led from the front, both scoring the opening penalties, but it was Argentina who held their nerve to eke out a 4-2 victory. Messi was awarded the Golden Ball for Player of the Tournament. Mbappe won the Golden Boot for the 8 goals he scored. Emiliano Martinez secured the Golden Glove for Best Goalkeeper, while another Argentine, 21-year-old Enzo Fernandez, was named Young Player of the Tournament. Simon Evans and Brent Sancho were both in Qatar for portions of the tournament and join us now as we look back at one of the great sporting spectacles, the final on Sunday, and one of the great World Cup tournaments. Gentlemen, welcome to the SportsMax Zone. Good to have both of you here.
To be here.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, I don't know who will go first here. Let me throw it out. The first man starts to answer. You go. Sunday's final, put into words what Sunday's final means for you in your career as an analyst, as a supporter of football, as a lover of the game.
I guess I'd take the first stab at this one. You know, I look back at those 3 hours or so of entertainment, and I felt blessed to be able to be alive to witness what we saw and what I saw personally. I did feel a huge sense of pride knowing that I once played the sport as well and was part of it. And I don't think there's anything I've seen on TV or otherwise, entertainment-wise, that was so gripping and had and evoked every single emotion that was inside of me. And despite the fact that I'm not a supporter of France or Argentina, it didn't matter. I was a supporter of the sport. I think just because of that, and even if you weren't a supporter of the sport, you became a fan of the sport and fell in love with the sport. So I think, you know, as much as we talk about football and the sport, I think it was bigger than that, and the spectacle was bigger than that. And to witness it, to be alive to witness something like that was truly fascinating.
Simon?
Yeah, I think, you know, you touched upon it earlier, how often these big games are disappointments. You know, they don't we can have tournaments that are full of great games and then a final that lets it down. And really, I thought with this World Cup, there were very, very few poor games, boring stinkers of matches, very few of them. But there were also, I thought, you know, missing those classic games, those games that, you know, you will remember for the rest of your life. I don't think there had been any until Sunday when it delivered in the game that mattered the most. So that was very unusual for a World Cup to have that classic game in the final. And I really, you know, watching it as a neutral, really was a little bit sad that it went to penalties in the sense that a 3-3 draw seemed to be the perfect statement for what that game was. And it was a little bit of a shame that one team had to win by the penalty shootout, but Argentina did, and deservedly so.
Brent, so often before, we've seen games like these where the star man for one team usually has an off day. And the star man for the other team may have a good enough day and they win. And we are left ruining how the other team didn't turn up because their star man didn't have a strong role to play. That wasn't the case on Sunday. And yet, the man whose individual performance was perhaps the best among all the players who graced that pitch at Lusail Stadium, only has a loser's medal, Brent. Sunday's final is the stuff dreams are made of, and Mbappe and France don't have much to be ashamed about, do they? If anything at all.
Listen, it's ironic that throughout Lionel Messi's international career, the subject has always been his supporting cast and how poor they've been throughout his career. And for the first time, when it matters, in this final, his supporting cast showed up and supported him as well. For Mbappe, I think it was not the case. France has always had a bevy of course, good players around, in and around. Obviously, they would have been hit by various injuries, flu blood, etc. But for Messi, I thought the supporting cast did very well. And the man himself led as well, Lionel Messi. So many times we've had conversations right here on the zone about Lionel Messi disappearing when it matters most. He didn't do that. He was there front and center. And I felt, and something that epitomizes what we are talking about, in extra time, you just felt the life was sucked out of Argentina, whether or not they had another gear. And Lionel Messi turns up again and scores. So for me, it was the perfect final in every regard, in every respect, as you rightfully said. Very rarely we've had top men, stars, that show up from both teams and go head-to-head for an exciting encounter. And that's what we had in Sunday's final. And, you know, as much as, you know, you look at it, it's one of those games that I'm very, very sure it's very easy to look at again and again and again.
Yeah, we're talking here about the dramatic finish and how the game unfolded. But when you look at long periods of the game when France weren't offering much in the contest, it was heading to a game, a forgettable final, in the way that we have suggested that we have seen a lot of finals like that. Late in the 70, I think probably 78th or 79th minute, commentator Peter Drury started talking about Argentina, an afternoon stroll, exhibition time. They were just cruising, and then within 10 minutes, you heard the complete opposite, that Argentina under pressure, and Messi has disappeared and is not offering much. So the game had a major turnaround, didn't it? 10 minutes before the end, when Mbappe came up with his double strike, Simon.
Yeah, I think a lot of credit has to be given to Didier Deschamps for the way he influenced that game with his substitutions and his changes in tactics. I mean, to make 2 substitutions in the first half of a World Cup final and take off your number 9, who scored the goal that got you through the quarter-final into the semis and so on, take out Giroud out of that game. Very difficult decisions for a coach to make, the kind of thing you can get hammered for lately. Okay, they were struggling, they needed to do something. And then 2 more substitutions in the 70th minute that really injected that pace. There were younger players coming on, they brought the energy in, and suddenly it seemed like they had a lot more to give than Argentina, especially when they got that 1 goal and felt there was some life in the game. So I think a lot of credit to Deschamps. Out there amongst managers, you see managers who will not be able to influence games or are scared to make changes, and he certainly isn't one of those, and showed exactly why he's been a winner up until that point.
Yeah, really major point that you're making there, Simon, because Brent, comment on this for us, because heading into extra time when France had made so many changes, Didier Deschamps making so many changes, a lot of young players coming in, Camavinga 20 years old, Fofana, Konate 23 years old. The feeling was that going into extra time, the French team with the momentum and the youth with the subs coming on would have the advantage in extra time until the magical Messi showed up.
And I add to that, of course, Lance, the physicality. And this is something that Argentina have struggled with throughout the tournament. We've seen it against the Netherlands when they brought on players, of course, physical in size, and of course, with the French, physical in size and speed. And they really, really struggled to deal with those sorts of players. Yes, youth is a plus to it, but I think more the physicality and the speed that brought in. And of course, the change in approach by the French as well. As Simon rightfully pointed out, I think Didier Deschamps made a master stroke in terms of being able to change things tactically, and then now started to pin back the Argentinian wingbacks, which of course created some problems, and the movement that the subs and the changes made, and Kingsley Coman in particular was outstanding in the end of the second half and was really the life wire that allowed Mbappe a bit more freedom, because all of a sudden there wasn't just a fire on the left-hand side, there was a fire on the right-hand side as well, and Argentinians had all hands on deck. And as you rightfully said, at the end, you would have to suggest that every single Argentinian, whether in the stadium or back in Argentina, was dying for the final whistle, because at that point, when it got to 2 apiece, it looked like there was only one winner at the end of the game, and only one winner going into the extra time as well.
Simon, the fact of the matter is 2014 will be remembered as the World Cup that Germany won with Mario Götze's goal, but it'll also be remembered as the game where Gonzalo Higuain absolutely destroyed his reputation by failing to tuck away chances presented to him by Messi's creativity. And here you go with the argument again about supporting cast not stepping up. Angel Di Maria, we know that he's had fitness troubles in the recent seasons. He's not played much for Juventus. So when people saw him taken off after about 64 minutes, they were saying mistake by the coach. But he really had nothing more to give because he had run his race. But what a 64 minutes those were. He presenting another attacking threat for France up front and winning the penalty and scoring the second goal. His contribution, history must not remember this as only the Messi final. It must be remembered as a game lit up by Di Maria for the 60-plus minutes that he was on the field.
Yeah, when I saw the team and that Di Maria had come in for his first start in the knockout stage, I think.
Yes, you are right. Yes, you are right.
Yeah. You know, you looked at it and you thought, that's a big call, you know. Is there a little bit of favouring the experienced guy who deserves his moment in the final here? It didn't feel like, to me, a decision that could be crucial to them winning the World Cup, and it turned out to be exactly that, the right move. It gave them an extra dimension. It gave them something they didn't have in those other games, where it was really the ball getting forward to Messi and then Alvarez and the midfielders just shunting up and down in support, really. Di Maria gave them an extra angles, craft, movement, ideas. It worked really, really well. And yeah, he didn't have the legs to go for the full 90, but that decision was a masterstroke. Yeah,
and Brent, the man whom he tormented, who got hooked in the 40th minute, Ousmane Dembele, for Scaloni to put that as the matchup, say to Di Maria, you get at Dembele because he's ill-disciplined, he is not diligent in his tracking back, that's not the strong point of his game, and if you get at him early, you'll reap rewards. That tactical matchup, Deschamps going with Dembele in that position and not getting help for him on that far side, and Scaloni telling Di Maria to you go and attack that space that he will leave behind. That was perhaps where the game was broken wide from the first half.
No, it was. And obviously Di Maria normally plays on the left-hand side. He was deployed on the right-hand side, of course, which gave Lionel Messi the freedom on the opposite side. So then the French didn't know which side to go to. And of course, Griezmann played such a pivotal role throughout this tournament defensively in being able to pick up the right spots and see in danger for the French. That didn't happen because, of course, he had to pick a side. And Dembele, as you rightfully mentioned, George, ended up being in situations, in 1v1 situations with a very, very much appetite-filled Di Maria. He looked like he had the bit between the teeth and he wanted to get at players. And of course, that was the difference in the game. Scaloni made a massive call. It wasn't just a big call. It could have been a game-changing call to start Di Maria, but he went with it because he believed in the tactics that he was playing forward. He had his wing backs quite high. They were extremely aggressive in their approach, Argentina, and that was a massive call. And as much as we talk about Messi and what he's done, and of course, all that comes with it, you cannot, of course, not shine the light on Scaloni and that big, big call that gave Argentina the impetus to go on and play so well. I think in the best half of football I've seen from any Argentinian team that we saw in the World Cup finals on Sunday.
And Simon, the people who watch the Premier League very closely will know Emi Martinez's prowess from the spot kick. The Aston Villa goalkeeper is building up a reputation as a man who gets into the heads of penalty takers, and he usually comes up trumps. We saw what he did at Copa America as well, so he's building that portfolio. So what he did to Bruno Fernandes against Manchester United at Old Trafford with a penalty that Bruno blazed high after being, the keeper had words with him, let's put it that way. The World Cup will again, of course, be about Lionel Messi's crowning moment. But there were other heroes, as yourself and Brent put on the table at the start of the discussion. And this goalkeeper, in the run of play, the save that he made from Kolomouani was big. And then in the penalty shootout, I can tell you, gentlemen, the moment it went to penalties was the moment I started favoring Argentina, because I felt that Martinez would do something to impose himself on the takers and that he would prove to be the difference, Simon.
As soon as it went to penalties, I thought that was it. Argentina's got it because of him. And also, you know, when you see the young, inexperienced players that France were forced to put into the position of being penalty takers as well. We've seen that happen before in major tournaments where you know, young players maybe don't cope with the pressure as well. But he's going to exploit that. I mean, the psychological mind games that he engages in right from the start. Where's the ball positioned? Where's the referee? Talking in people's ear, moving around. It's you know, you can question it from a sporting and a fair play point of view, but in terms of operating within the boundary of what is, you know, legal within the rules of the game, he's absolutely brilliant at that and a great shot stopper as well. So absolutely deserved the prize he got, and really, you know, never felt as soon as that penalty shootout started like France were going to win it, did it?
Yeah, and one quick one before we go, Brent. The World Cup triumph proves that I don't know that there's a formula for winning the World Cup. To say, well, give a coach 3-4 tournaments, and by tournament 5, which is the World Cup, he'll be ripe to make the right decisions all the time, to pick the right players in the squad. Lionel Scaloni, when he got the job, he was available, perhaps cheap, more than likely very, very cheap, because don't forget, when he was hired, the Argentine FA was having trouble with their finances, severe problems with their finances, heading into the Copa America that they eventually won. And his appointment was criticized by several leading figures in Argentine football at the time, and justifiably, because this man had never had a big job before, and he gets pushed into one of the biggest jobs in international football. One Copa America later, he is a world champion. You can't script these things. If it's your time, it's your time, and there's no formula for winning the World Cup. You just have to make the right decisions as the tournament goes along, Brent.
Yeah, and this is a team that lost to Saudi Arabia, and I think most of us would have had them done and dusted and out the tournament, because they really were horrible against Saudi Arabia and looked uninspired. And somehow, in some way, they were able to, of course, start to pick things up. But I think when you look at Argentina's performance, and more so to Scaloni and what he's been able to do, every game he's improved, every game he's looked at things from a tactical perspective and made the right calls and decisions. And I think that is where you have to give him credit. He made some massive decisions in terms of player personnel and player start. A prime example of that, of course, is McAllister, someone that was probably not even on Argentina's radar anywhere from a starting perspective. But here he is filling in and played a major, major role in what he did. And if you look at the squad 1 through 22 plus, they have those types of scenarios, decision-making, but they stuck at it as a team. I think when you look at their body of work, they're probably, arguably, the most spirited and the most believed team in the tournament.
Hear you on that, my friend. A good point to hold it right. Let's take a break and come back, gentlemen. I'll stay where you are. I'm going to talk about Lionel Messi's legacy after these.
Want more content? Follow us on YouTube, subscribe to SportsMax on cable, and download the SportsMax app today.